The first warning arrived just before sunrise. A shepherd stood at the edge of the valley, staring toward the mountains where a thin ribbon of gray smoke drifted into the sky. It wasn't the color that unsettled him. It was the silence. The birds had disappeared. The insects had stopped singing. Even the wind seemed to be waiting. By midday, officials rode into the village with urgent orders. Everyone was told to leave immediately. They warned that heavy rains had weakened the mountain above them. A massive landslide could bury the entire valley without warning. Families rushed to gather what little they could carry. Wagons creaked down dusty roads. Children cried. Doors were locked, animals untied, and homes that had stood for generations were abandoned within hours. Everyone left, except one man. The villagers called him stubborn. For years, he had ignored advice from neighbors, officials, even his own relatives. He trusted only what he could see with his own eyes. This time was no different. Standing outside his small stone house, he looked toward the mountain. The smoke, the dark clouds, the frightened faces, they convinced everyone else. But something else caught his attention. The stream flowing through the village was changing. Instead of rising after the rain, the water had suddenly become shallow. Small fish flopped helplessly along the muddy banks. To most people, it meant nothing. To him, it meant the mountain wasn't simply becoming unstable. Something was blocking the water upstream. He grabbed a shovel, a lantern, and began walking uphill. The climb grew harder with every step. Fallen branches covered the trail, and distant cracks echoed through the forest. Eventually, he reached a narrow gorge where a fresh landslide had already collapsed into the river. Tons of rock had formed a natural dam, trapping an enormous lake behind it. The mountain hadn't finished falling. If that rocky wall gave way, millions of liters of water would race straight toward the empty village and toward the only road the fleeing families were using. For the first time that day, the man ran. He raced downhill, waving his lantern and shouting until he caught the last group of villagers. Most wanted to keep moving, assuming he had simply refused to evacuate. But his panic was impossible to ignore. A few people climbed back with him to investigate. When they reached the gorge, they froze. The temporary dam was already cracking. Water seeped through growing fractures with every passing second. The evacuation route below sat directly in the flood's path. The warning changed instantly. Instead of continuing down the valley, everyone turned toward higher ground. They abandoned the road only minutes before the natural dam burst apart. A roaring wall of water thundered through the valley, ripping away bridges, trees, and everything in its path. The road where hundreds of villagers had been walking disappeared beneath mud and debris. The homes they had left behind were destroyed, but the people were alive. The man who had ignored every official warning had never intended to become a hero. His decision wasn't based on bravery or perfect judgment. In fact, refusing to evacuate could easily have cost him his life. What saved the village wasn't his stubbornness. It was that, while everyone else focused on the danger they had been told about, he noticed a different danger that nobody else had seen. History often celebrates heroes for their courage. But sometimes, survival belongs to the person who keeps asking one more question, even when everyone else believes the answer is already settled.